Today, what we're going to do is we are going to go out and shoot a video. It is the winter time. It is very cold out. I think today, right now, it's about 14 degrees. So fire is definitely a priority that we want to have. So let's get going. Oh, by the way, there is one thing that's definitely going to help you. It's not so much a skill, but it is something that you should be aware of. You know, before you go out there, let somebody know where you're going. You can very easily write a note, or you can pick up the phone and call somebody and let them know where you are. And all the information is basically what time you're going out there, where you went in to the wilderness, you know, if you have a favorite park that you're going to, or just a favorite stretch of woods or a favorite hunting ground. Let them know where you're at. And then let them know what you're going to be doing out there and at what time you feel that you're going to be coming out. Okay, we have to take into consideration there are allowances. You may get that wanderlust and you may wander around too much and you may lose thought of time. That's okay. Set up a contingency plan that in case, you know, you may be 1 or 2 hours late, don't rely on your cell phone out there. You may not have service. The cold in the wintertime especially kills your battery in your phone. So always be mindful of that as well. Now let's get going. Most of the time we have our favorite spots that we go to, but we all get that point where we want to try a new area and things of that nature. One of the things that you want to consider is the resources that you may or may not have in that area, especially in the wintertime, because you know you're going to want to make that fire. So my whole theory behind that is, why not take advantage of resources along the way? If you have a resource while you're driving along and you see it before you get to your location, why not stop and pick them up? In the wintertime, it's not always that difficult to find, but if you do have a heavy snow cover, it can make it difficult. So we have to remember to collect things that are going to help us make that fire that are above the snow. It's always better to collect ahead of time than to wait until it's too late or too dark. And you don't want to necessarily have to dive into your pack right away. You should start to build up your self-reliance prior to that. So that's what we're going to do. So as I was saying, you know, along the way you can grab some resources. So right along here, if you take a look out here, we got some Phragmites blowing in the breeze. And that's some pretty good stuff to use as a tinder bundle. So we're going to grab some. Phragmites, it grows along the water, which this whole thing is water right here. That's actually an island out there. This is a wildlife area actually that I'm driving through right now. But the tops of it is very soft, feathery, and billowy. So this is definitely going to be a good source for our tinder bundle. You'll find them in water. You'll find them around in little pockets and coves and ponds and lakes and things. All right, so we made it, and we're going to be heading out into this little patch of woods that I like to frequent a lot. I actually do a little bit of hunting and whatnot here. So before we go out, let's talk about some of the gear that we're going to be carrying today. And you have to remember that when you're talking about your kit mentality, that changes and evolves, and it should, time and time again. Different things are going to, you know, come into play. We're going to talk about the fact that you should change your kit in a winter environment as opposed to a summer environment and things of that nature. And you should always be evolving. You should always take into consideration these things. Take into consideration your temperature, you know, the things that you need to wear, which ultimately that winds up being your first shelter. Well, I first started off with, you know, I put a wicking layer on underneath, followed by a wool sweater, followed by a wool vest that's a dense wool, and I use that as a windbreak because in this shirt, even though this is a heavy wool shirt, the wind does have a tendency to actually start to seep through a little bit. Okay, so you want to keep that major core temperature nice and warm while you're out there and you're doing it. One of the main reasons why I wear wool all the time is that, you know, it is breathable. It retains 80% of its insulative values when it gets wet, and it's just all around a very good choice. It's quiet, if you're doing stalking or hunting or anything of that nature, it's something that you may want to consider. Again, all these things, you don't listen to it just because I say it. What you do is you have to try things, and you have to make sure that you know what's good for you. The guy that thinks that he can live out of one bag all 4 seasons and he has one kit that's going to last all 4 seasons is kind of naive. Things have to change, things have to evolve. The area of operation that you're going to be in, the time of year, the season that you're going to be in, what your purpose is out there. You're not going to take 3 weeks worth of gear to go out for a half an hour, okay? The validity of that statement is that you are going to have several things on you at any given time that will be in that bag. You should have a knife on you. You should have a metal container on you. You should have cordage, you should have a shelter, and you should have some way to create fire when you need it. So let's take a look at the kit really quickly. We'll start from left to right. We have my shelter system, which is consisting of a wool blanket, emergency space blanket, clear plastic, another SOL heat sheet, and a sill tarp where I can make a super shelter. My fire bag is right here. And I also carry 2 other ferrocerium rods. One's on my knife sheath and one's on the inside of my blanket shirt. My cutting tool consists of the knife that I carry on my side and a Baco Laplander saw. My cordage is a complement of paracord and bank line. My container is basically three pieces, which is my water bottle, a titanium cup, and a Kuxa or a Kapilka cup. I have duct tape, my compass, we have a headlamp, 2 55-gallon drum liners, 2 100% cotton bandanas, and some extra steel wool. Alright, it's a small kit and it does just fine for the purpose of what I'm doing today. Alright, so we're out here, we're collecting our tinder, we're going to get ready to make our fire. But something that you need to be aware of, that's situational awareness. And, being aware of the animals that you may have in your area. Right here, if you take a look, what I have here is a definite canine track. That's indicated by, 4 toes that are there, and there's some claws there as well. Most dog family tracks are 4 toes, claws showing, with the exception of the gray fox. So we know that there's canines in our area. So we'll just continue on. So what I got here is I have the remnants of an old cedar tree. And we should be able to scrape off some fibers off the outer bark for use in our tinder pond. While we're collecting this cedar off of here, I'm not using the edge of my knife. What I'm actually using is I'm using the spine. And that's a good prerequisite to a knife, is to have a 90-degree spine on the back, for striking your ferro rod and doing things of this nature. If you do it this way, you're not destroying the resource of the edge that you have on the knife. So, pretty much, this is what we're looking for. I'm going to scrape some more off and we'll go about our business. And what we have here is a beech tree. It's not the greatest in the world, but these leaves will stay on for most of the year. And in the wintertime, what's nice about them is the fact that they won't crumble up per se. They almost stay supple. So we can add this right to our resources. Okay, they've been up in the air, they're off the ground where we want to find most of our tinder and even our fuel for our fires. We want these things up in the air. We want them to be wind blown and dry. Of course, when we have, as you can see here, it almost looks like dried tobacco. They don't crumble up. They're nice and dry, but they don't dissipate. They don't just turn into powder. So it's another reason why it's nice to have these. Put this in our sack too along the way. You know, when we're out in the woods and we're gathering our resources, once we come across those resources, we don't want to deplete them completely, right? We want to save some on there in case we need to come back to that and grab it and use it for another time. We also want to make mental notes of where those resources are, which is a really good reason why we carry journals, okay? If you're in a specific area and you find these resources, jot it down, make a little map, show where it is, jars your memory. Go along when you're doing your scouts and make these mental notes of the different resources that you have. And remember, don't use them all up because you want to come back to them.